of the network of experts. The network is growing, and we're very happy to see some faces that are becoming really an integral part of the network, and also to see new colleagues that are joining the network. As you know, we have a series of webinars organized. The one of today focusing on the use of big data for labor market analysis, especially in light of the digital and green transition. We will have another webinar planned in the month of June regarding skills needs of workers, and then let's say the highlight activity of the year we will have in October, the live event of the network. The event will take place in Torino, and we will open the call for interest to come to Torino and join this live event in the coming weeks. So if you are interested, please follow us and apply to participate. It will be a great occasion to get together and talk, discuss, especially about the topic of digital skills. This will be the key topic discussed this year. So it's really a pleasure today to host this webinar on the use of big data. This is linked to digitalization and greening. We know very well that technology is changing the nature of work, and that to prepare the workforce of tomorrow and to ensure sustainable, inclusive growth and education and vocational training, will need to adapt to the new ways of working. Millions of workers around the globe will need to change occupation as automation is increasingly deployed. I recently read a McKinsey report published in February 2023, which says that in the South Mediterranean region, 45 of existing work activities can be automated, which is close to the global average of 50%, and the skills gap is significant. The demand for social and emotional skills, along with the higher cognitive skills, will also grow. And what will grow is also the demand for both basic and advanced digital skills. An education system and companies are already somehow building up their capacity to mobilize learners and educators for these new skills needs. From what we have seen in our ETF studies, we have observed that digitalization, however, is not the only driver of change in developing and transition countries, where there is also a very strong impact of the green transition. This is generating new jobs or new tasks in all jobs. But how can we track those changes? How can policymakers understand in real time or quasi-real time what are the new skills needs emerging in the labor market? We know that policymakers need faster and more detailed information on skills needs to monitor and respond to the challenges created by mega trends such as the COVID-19. And providing information on real time, big data have the great potential to improve policymakers' understanding of trends in skills demand and skills supply. We observe that the strength of big data include granularity on the one side and timeliness on the other side, compared to the conventional approaches to skills analysis. Regarding granularity, it is clear that using big data to understand skills demands and supply has several advantages compared to traditional methods of investigation. There are, for instance, clear limits in surveys or employer surveys, for instance, to understand skills needs and trends in occupation, as only a limited number of skills can be considered. And simplification is needed to keep the questionnaire simple, and also there is a difficulty to have representative questionnaires or surveys, because these become large and costly. On the other side, using big data requires, of course, a data production system for the data injection, the pre-processing, information extraction, and so on, that, however, is complex in the beginning, but can really pay off in the medium or long term. And on the other side, the time is, of course, one of the key advantages of the big data use, because the use of the big data, the processing of big data, has the potential to really provide information in a very quick time, real time, as we say. Of course, there are limitations, the effort to prepare the system, the fact that often there is an issue with statistical selection and conceptual biases, the fact that in developing and transition countries, due to the specific structure of the labor market, informality, but also less developed digital infrastructure, there are complications or more challenging situations because online system can only track some, like a specific part of the market, for instance, urban, formal, and white-collar jobs. And of course, also the fact that setting up a stable and well-functioning system for gathering, processing, and analyzing the data remains a challenging exercise. So you would ask, big data are therefore the future or not? And my answer would be yes, but with a but. The but is that big data will become integral part of the data infrastructure in the country, but will not replace other skills intelligence methods and sources. Exploiting the complementarity between the different sources of skill intelligence will be key to generate statistically robust, detailed, and policy relevant evidence. And we will discuss today during the webinar about the different methodologies that have been developed. So I think that the research community on this topic has a key role to play, not only to generate the knowledge, but also to experiment new techniques, new tools, to fully exploit the potential offered by big data. We will hear some examples today, and my hope is really that this example can be inspirational for the participants and for the members of the network, and especially that they can contribute to develop innovative ideas about tools that ultimately will support individuals, policymakers, and countries to make better informed choices. Thank you very much. I now pass the floor to Giancarlo, although I should have done it before, sorry, for some technical indication. Sorry, Giancarlo.
No problem, Francesca.
Upside down, sorry.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I mean, just a few words from my side about, let's say, the so-called rules of engagement. I guess everyone is now familiar with the Zoom platform, but basically we would invite everyone to turn on their cameras if possible, because I mean, this webinar is supposed to be, let's say, very lively and interactive opportunity to talk, discuss, and listening to interesting presentations. You can use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions during the Q&A sessions. The moderators will pick up some of the questions and hopefully try to answer such questions. But in any case, you can let's say interact with the moderators and let's say with all the participants. And obviously, we invite everyone to join the discussion and let's say really contribute to the development of new ideas. I mean, what Francesca has just said. So that's all from my side. Thanks a lot and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Sorry again for going upside
no problem.
down. I was too excited about the participants and the content of the webinar. So let me pass now the floor immediately to our colleague and senior expert, Eduarda Castelbranco, from ETF, who will lead us through the work that the ETF has done and developed on online job vacancies. Please, Eduarda, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Very happy to be here with you. I hope you can all hear me well. Yes? Good. So, Eduarda Castelbranco, I'm working with the European Training Foundation, and in this case, with this project that we started 3 years ago on the use of big data, notably online job vacancy analysis in the context of labor market intelligence. So I want to say a special good morning to all of you. Good morning, and in some cases, I'm sure there are also people who are already in the afternoon, and it's really a pleasure to see many faces who are also participating in the network that is exactly dealing with I don't have access to the screen sharing.
Please try again.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so this presentation is short, relatively short. The topic is relatively, let's say, complex, but we have in the meantime developed a number of tools, information, methodological support that can be accessed online, and you have received, I think, a brief note that helps you, guides you into the intricacies and features of this approach. So the project, as I said, started in 2018, last part of 2018, and in the first year it was especially dedicated to developing a methodological support, let's say, which then took the form of an introductory guide. We started the first application already in 2019 with the landscaping of web labor market in Tunisia and Morocco. And then from 2020, we actually went into the concrete creation of complete online job vacancy analysis system, data production system, and dashboards. Firstly, with 2 countries, Tunisia and Ukraine, with analytical reports. And then from 2021, so this is already the period of the global pandemic, we expanded to a new country, Georgia, and we started also a new angle of analysis that we called the green dashboard. So analyzing green skills in online job vacancy analysis. As you will see, the data system is based exclusively so far on demand. So we are not talking here on the supply side, but on demand side. And the main source of information data are online job vacancies, advertisements posted on different types of web portals. So there is full comparability of the ETF tools, dashboards, databases with the real-time data system of the EU27, because we are using the same underpinnings, conceptual and technical, of CEDEFOP, of the big CEDEFOP project, and you know the Skills of 8 platform. To carry out the work, we work with data analytics of the University Milano Bicocca and Lightcast. In 2022, we undertook also expansion to new countries and also started new angles, new themes of analysis, looking into new themes of analysis. So the new countries are Kenya and Egypt. And from 2023, now in 2023, we will add either Algeria or Morocco. And the selection is always based on the results of the landscaping study, which is the first step always of the approach. As I mentioned, new themes, and so last year we started two new papers, one on supply side analysis and the other one on combination of data. So combination and comparison of data from different sources. So notably the conventional statistics and big data. As I said in the beginning, there is quite a substantial amount of training, capacity development program materials, presentations, pedagogic videos from all the training webinars. And last year, for example, we had a series of 6 training webinars in the period November-December. So all of this is, of course, available, accessible for free use and sharing. You can naturally use in your organizations with colleagues and so on. Online job vacancy analysis is then the main source. As I said, online job advertisements are really an important source. They refer to advertisements published on the internet. We all know that the volume of online job vacancies is growing in all countries, and therefore the importance of this source. They usually include data on the characteristics of the job, like the occupation and location, characteristics of the employer, for example, the economic activity, and then the requirements, the tasks, the education, skills, requirements related with the jobs. Part of this information is, of course, available only and as natural language, textual data. And naturally, that this type of big data requires specific methodologies for processing and analysis, but provides also much more detailed information compared to alternative data sources, and avoids, let's say, the preconceived classifications. So important to that. So as a bottom-up source of information and data. We can then, for example, have additional ways to identify, for example, new skills, emerging skills that are not part of existing taxonomies and classifications. The goal of online job vacancy analysis is, of course, to transform those hundreds, thousands, millions of web pages containing the job advertisements, job vacancies into value in various forms, as we know, for labor market intelligence, information for various types of users. So let me then try to summarize what is complex in a couple of bullet points. So the data is collected from the web. It is always based on a feasibility analysis, which we call landscaping. We, of course, deal and work with the 5 V's of big data, and I hope you all know them. We will see them right after. The data management flow includes these 6 steps, so landscaping, ingestion of data, processing, extraction, ETL, which is then the actual creation of the databases, and the presentation area, where the processed data is then presented, the data is delivered to different types of users. Presentation area can have naturally very diverse forms and shapes, depending on the purposes, also on the users, target users. The process includes several data quality steps and tools. Then very, very important is the fact that naturally the data then is classified. This data extracted from natural language processing is then classified with a combination of AI algorithms and human in the loop, so AI aided and human in the loop techniques, and always using international classifications and taxonomies. And they are, in the case of our data processing system, we are of course using ISCAD 2011 for education levels, ISCO 08 for occupational classification, ESCO also for occupations and especially for skills, NACE for sectors, economic activities. And then for the digital skills, we use firstly the ESCO digital skills, and then also a combination of other sources such as Senelec that provides a very good, let's say, framework on digital profiles, and then Stack Overflow, GitHub that are complementary taxonomies, let's say, or lists of digital skills always updated and are very helpful for the classification. And then for the green skills, we are using what we have currently, and which is the ETF green skills list that we are already benchmarking and mapping with the ESCO green skills. Let me complete this by saying that big data has no intention to replace, of course, conventional statistics, but to complement, to add value. And in the European Union, we already have the very interesting experience of the Eurostat-led project called Trusted Smart Statistics, which is exactly doing this putting together the different sources, including big data, notably on skills and conventional statistics. And together they will form then the official statistics of the future. Naturally, that this requires a lot of conversation, a lot of trust, and also methodological developments. The data flow that I was mentioning before is simply visualized here. And maybe I want just to refer to the fact that the big data era is based on these three elements that are in the first picture there. Data torrent, meaning the enormous volume of data being constantly produced, computing power, anytime, anywhere, growing, and AI algorithms. So this is the sum up of the, let's say, the features of the online job vacancy analysis system. So firstly, data from online job vacancies, and always in the sense of that this complements statistics, conventional statistics, an AI-aided data system. It is based and uses international classifications that I listed earlier for the classification of the data, so that it is comparable, understandable, and can be integrated or compared with the conventional statistical data. Visualization of the data, very important, interactive dashboards according to the variables that each country wants to actually focus on. This important also idea of let the data speak, because this is not survey, top-down data, generated data. This is more bottom-up. Let the data speak. And then the 5 V's of big data: volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. So these, in a nutshell, these main characteristics. As I said earlier, and this is just to complement some of the papers, reflections that we are nurturing now in the project since end 2022. So the added transformative value of combining the different data sources, this is one of the papers. And I want to thank 2 of the experts present today in this meeting, namely Volodymyr Sarioglu from Ukraine, and of course, my friend Egine Manasyan from Armenia, for the contribution they gave as discussants to these papers. Then another one is supply side analysis using big data. There are different ways. We are still in discussion, and we are going to do a small, let's say, pilot in the case of Ukraine. Then another one on integration of online job vacancy data with occupational outlook. In this case, it's the occupational outlook of Egypt. So we also produced a reflection paper in the concept proposal, a concept note on ETF green skills, a concept note on digital skills analysis. Let me go now a little bit more to into the direction of data, concrete results. So, as you know, all country dashboards are available online, and the link is provided there. You can easily navigate and interact, because these dashboards are all interactive. Let me say that the dashboards we have currently are, let's say, relatively simple from a point of view of visualization. But they are extremely rich in terms of variables and combination of variables. So the standard variables on the ETF dashboards, and the analysis is done according to the list you have there in the blue box. So occupation, occupation to education, occupation industry, occupation to skill, from the ESCO perspective, from the ESCO skills taxonomy, but we also have occupation to skill according to the ONET taxonomy. Some countries are interested in ONET as well. Then location, language, and the professional dashboard, which combines in one single page all the different variables, and is therefore quite useful to have a quick overview of all variables in a specific country, place, period of time, or even region in the country. I would like then now to go into one specific case, which is the one in which we started then doing the analysis of digital skills, and a different richer, let's say, more nuanced analysis of green skills. And this is very, very recent work, and not naturally everything that is being done new needs further fine-tuning, discussion, and feedback. So the data in the case of the Egypt country system the collection started from January 2021 systematically, and we already have, of course, the data released and updated up to end of February 2023. So currently we have 1.5, a bit more, million total collected online job vacancies, and 500, so more than 500,000 that have been deduplicated, that are actually used in the analysis. We are using naturally English sources, they are very important, but also Arabic sources. And for this we are doing for the first time. So this is really a pioneering kind of work. The scraping and use of Arabic language sources of online job vacancies. The list of online web portals is indicated, the most important ones, but of course we have a longer list. Naturally, we have a database and a dashboard. So this is just, as I said earlier, a picture of our professional dashboard. So all variables in one view. And all these variables are naturally interactive, and you can dialogue with all of them and simply do your own navigation. The green skills, that was one of the questions I was asked to a little bit explore today in this conversation. So what are green skills? And I'm using here definitions from the literature, notably from CEDEFOP. So, okay, we know that green skills are currently a very, very important area of policy debate and action, and they are becoming a priority also in labor market research. And there is a range of international organizations are working towards developing taxonomies and also analytical frameworks related with green skills. And I just named CEDEFOP, OECD, ETF started in October 2021. We produced the first list of skills, and that will show very quickly. So, and the various organizations are also trying to speak with each other. ESCO is also playing a role. ESCO has also now tagged over 400 skills as green skills. So there is quite a lot of conversation and reflection on this matter. So the CEDEFOP defines green skills as the knowledge, abilities, values, and attitudes needed to live, work, and act in economies and societies seeking to reduce the impact of human activity on the environment. And green skills, the skills for the green economy, and there are different terms can be used naturally, they consist of a range of groups: the transversal skills, the specific skills, the highly specialized skills. And yeah, skills for the green economy can also be referred to as skills for green jobs, skills for the green transition, or simply green skills, as we are currently doing. I'm not going into more details so that we can then cover all the content. ETF has, as I said, produced the first green skills list. It consists of 225 terms. The identification of these terms has been data-driven. So these are all terms that have been identified from the online job vacancies, from exploring, extracting from the databases of online job vacancies. So it is top-down, and it is strictly related with what employers are saying in online job vacancies. So we have used a conceptual framework inspired by the European Green Deal. So the green skills are, let's say, clustered around these 7 groups, 7 clusters of sustainable activity, such as transport, economy, tourism, energy, and others. So the development of this ETF green skills list is naturally ongoing. We started, as I said, in October 2021, and currently we are discussing, we have advanced well with the conversation with ESCO support team, concerning the possibility of integration of this ETF list into the ESCO's green skills taxonomy. And there are very good perspectives. ESCO has very well accepted the proposals, our 225 terms. So now I'm going to show a couple of results from the analysis. As you know, we are conducting this analysis in Egypt. And why Egypt? It is actually the result of good cooperation with the Egypt Task Force on Labor Market Information. And they were very interested in the possibilities of using the databases of online job vacancies for an analysis important for the country at this precise moment. And it's especially important for the forum on the future of work in Egypt. So here we have a couple of indicators, like, for example, the top green skills as identified in the Egypt online job vacancy database. So as you can see, on top, we have an ISO 14001 with more than 25%. So it's quite an important top green skill as requested by employers in job advertisements. Then we have renewable energy, electric vehicles, energy conservation, and you can see the rest: solar energy, energy efficiency, sustainable business, environmental protection, energy saving. So this is the list of the top 10. But naturally, we have a much more a longer list of green skills as identified, extracted from those 500,000 duplicated online job vacancies Egypt. Then the pie shows us just the distribution according to those 7 clusters that form, let's say, the conceptual framework of green skills as we used in ETF from October 2021. So you can see that sustainable energy as represent a very high share, as well as sustainable production, environment and sustainable tourism as well. So sustainable transport with almost 10% is also important. So that's what this is, just to give an idea of if we use the clusters of sustainable clusters, how the skills can be grouped, distributed, the green skills. Then we also have extracted green skills according to the ETF taxonomy of 225 terms, and distribution by sectors as well as by occupations. So you can see that by sectors we have a higher concentration, a higher frequency of green skills mentioned in online job vacancies by employers in the sectors of electricity, gas, air conditioning supply, waste collection, treatment, disposal, also remediation activities, other waste management services. But we also see green skills mentioned in other areas, even human health, manufacture of machinery and equipment, construction of buildings, unfortunately, looks quite low, 1%. Manufacturing in general also, construction in general also quite low so far. So conversation the questions here, the issues that this shows, I think could be a part of a conversation at the policy level. Occupations. In terms of occupations, we see that environmental and occupational health and hygiene professionals is the occupation with a higher share of green skills. Ships engineers follows environmental engineers, building construction laborers, and others. We even see, for example, that in occupations such as government, tax, and excise officials, green skills are also represented. So this means that probably economists as well. So the presence or the importance that is being given then in such government occupations to this important new dimension, green. We tried also these profiles, green skills profiles of top green occupations. Here what we see is then the set of these top green occupations and the combination of skills that we have clustered in those different 7 clusters. For example, you see ships engineers, what we have is essentially skills of the cluster sustainable energy. The same thing happens with sheet metal workers, life science technicians, government tax and excise officials. So sustainable energy at the center. But in other cases, we see actually a combination of different clusters. For example, look at building architects. There we have green skills from the cluster environment and sustainable tourism. We have sustainable construction and also sustainable energy. That was so an attempt to have a sort of profiling of those top green occupations in terms of the sustainable clusters that we have then conceived for the ETF's green skills analysis based on online job vacancies. We can also do comparisons with European Union countries. For example, Egypt compared with Germany and Italy. Actually, we see that in the 3 cases, the cluster sustainable energy is the strongest, let's say, is the most important in the pie, let's say, in the distribution by clusters of green skills in the 3 cases. But then, for example, the cluster environment and sustainable tourism has very different shapes in the 3 cases. Egypt and Italy look alike, but then Germany has a much wider representativeness, let's say, of green skills in environment and sustainable tourism cluster. Let me say again, these clusters and this list of green skills has been created for the ETF own use in the green skills analysis. And just to complete, by end 2023, the new version of ESCOs, it will be ESCO 1.2, will be released following, or maybe even beginning of 2024. It will be released after a process of consultation, and we do hope that many of these green skills terms of the ETF list will be then incorporated in that new version of important version of ESCO 1.2. Now let us talk a bit about digital skills, always based on the Egypt online job vacancy database. What are green digital skills? It's the ability to make confident, critical, and responsible use of, and to engage with digital technologies for learning, at work, and for participation in society. Digital skills includes information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, media literacy, digital content creation, including programming, safety, including digital well-being and competences related to cybersecurity, intellectual property, and related questions, as well as problem solving and critical thinking. So that's a wide definition that is used in European Union sources. So the basis for the analysis of digital skills that we undertook for the case of the Egypt database, and that's the only case of digital skills analysis we have so far, is based on the ESCO digital skills, which is then, that includes, it's a list of 1,100 digital skills. As I said earlier, to complete and to ease the classification, we use also other sources of digital skills, Stack Overflow, GitHub. What are the top 20 digital skills in the case of Egypt? And here you can see them. So this is all extracted based on the more than 500,000 online job vacancies, so deduplicated Egypt. So as you can see, computer literacy stands high first, in this rank, is this top 20, use Microsoft Office, use Office systems, then enterprise resource planning, computer programming, and you can see the rest. This is then extracted from using using the classic as main reference, the ESCO digital skills. If we would look at the main occupational groups, always Egypt database, and try to profile here these three different types of skills. One, the orange, digital skills. The blue, the soft skills, more, let's say, transversal skills. And then the yellow, the occupational specific skills. This is the picture we can come up with based on the analysis as it currently stands. So how to read this? When we say managers, ISCO group managers having 13.6% digital skills rate, 39% soft skills rate, and 47% occupational skills rate, this simply means the following. Out of 100 skills extracted from online job vacancies, 13% in the case of the group managers, 13 of those 100 are digital, 39.3 are soft, and 47 are occupational specific skills. So that's how it should be read. So that's why we're calling it rate or even degree of digital or soft or occupational specific skills. And you can see how the different occupational groups differ. You can see that the group with highest rate of digital skills is the group professionals, followed by another group, craft and related trade workers. So both the other, then technicians and associate professionals with 14%, clerical support workers with 14%, which says something about this gradual, penetration of the digital skills, and then the rest you can see by yourselves. Naturally, that what we are trying to give here is this view of different important groups of skills, how different occupational groups, ISCO 08 occupational groups can be characterized based on the data, always data driven. That's another view. So digital skills in digital and non-digital occupations. And again, we are using the same dimension, digital skills rate, soft skills rate, and occupational specific non-digital skills. And here we have then the specific occupations. And with the numbers in the second column, the unique online job vacancies 2022. I think you can explore, you can compare if this is of any interest. These are also visualization of data that can be important for education and training providers. Our database engineers and administrators programs, education and qualifications, or different types of programs, long, short, etc., are they somehow oriented to this combination of skills? It's not only digital, it's not only soft, etc. So this can be a good maybe orientation reference for education and training world, let's say those who develop curricula, qualifications, employment training, etc. This is another vision, another view of the data analysis done of the digital skills. And here we are simply referring to the CENELEC framework. And you can see then the different ICT profiles according to CENELEC framework that we can identify using the Egypt online job vacancy database. Let me say also a few words about AI skills. So from the data, we can then conclude that there is a very strong growth of demand for AI skills. So you can see from 2021 to 2022, an increase of 43% in demand for skills that can be identified as AI skills. And in this case, we are using AI skills list of Lightcast. So that's the reference taxonomy, if we can call like that. And which are these skills? So again, top AI skills in online job vacancies, Egypt. You can see machine learning standing very high as top AI skill, artificial intelligence, computer vision, deep learning, chatbot, image processing, recommender systems, machine learning algorithms, path analysis, machine translation, so and more. So this we wanted just to give the top part. Naturally, we can go more granular in the analysis. Some final notes. Yes, as Francesca was saying in the beginning, one of the important values, let's say, value added of online job vacancy data is the fact that it can help us with real-time data analysis and data delivery. So the ingestion, from ingestion to delivery. It is a permanent flow, a permanent and fresh inflow of data. It is not without challenges. There are technical challenges that we are every day learning to deal with, and there is quite a lot now of data quality measures and tools to deal with these challenges. The volume, so this big volume of data allows different angles of analysis on skills and occupations, and also the granularity. We can also refer to data and insights analytics on the basis of this data as finder. It allows us to do like early spotting, identification of new phenomena, new skills, new patterns of skills mix, the digital, soft, technical, green, etc. And then this can be further analyzed in combination with conventional statistical and other data sources. So like early spotting of new skills. Then for the digital and green transition, which is the essence of our opportunities and challenges, I think, in our lives and the lives of our sons, daughters, and grandsons and granddaughters. Identification of the demanded skills, that's important. So online job vacancy analysis gives us very good hints on the skills on demand in the words and language of employers, qualitative trends over time and quantitative trends over time by occupations and sectors, green and digital skills profiles of occupations, AI skills, AI occupations that as they are emerging and growing, and then also naturally setting up international benchmarking and comparisons. In the identification of green skills, for example, we can see which are the lead industries and regions in green job creation, qualifications also for green jobs, how qualifications education can follow and respond and meet the needs as identified through this data. The evolution of the digital skills and new emerging occupations, also important. Digital skills are constantly evolving and changing. Growth in jobs requiring new knowledge and new skills of the digital, let's say, dimension. Then to added value naturally to labor market intelligence and skills development policies and practices. So, of course, emerging trends in labor market and skills inform policy responses. There are limitations, and the ones I'm mentioning here are a bit different, let's say, maybe complementary to those that were mentioned by Francesca in the beginning. Yes, because the market of the part of the labor market of the employers, of the employment market that is using online job vacancies, using web tools, is still growing, but it is really growing and it is becoming more and more diverse. It's not only now the high skills profiles occupations, but also many other different types of occupations. So, but there is overrepresentation of certain occupational groups. For example, in the case of Egypt, we see professionals representing 55%. And there is an underrepresentation in general relating to occupations requiring lower level of skills and occupations. But gradually, the situation is becoming more nuanced and varied because so many more companies of different types, employers of different types are using the web to publish their recruitment and their needs in terms of workers, skills, employees. So there is a lot of work done and growing increasingly robust techniques for classification of the online job vacancy data. So, but of course, in certain cases, the taxonomies are still in evolution, like for example, green and even digital skills. And therefore, there is quite a lot still of space for discovery, for fine-tuning in this domain as well. I think basically I have finished and I can stop sharing. But I think if I still have 5 minutes, I'd like just to ask your patience, and I'd like just to show very, very quickly one thing, actually 2 things. It's really just a few seconds. So I want to show you very briefly a working document that is absolutely not published, but we are in a network, an experts network, which means also a network for discovery and for exploration. So what I'm sharing here with you, I hope you can see, and I can agree, of course, increase a little bit. So what we have here is the list of green skills as it has been identified, produced by ETF. We can share with you naturally the concept paper that underpins this list. And you can see the kind of skills, the terminology used. And as I said earlier, these terms are identified, are data-driven, identified bottom-up. We have, for example, let's see, alternative fuels, biofuels, carbon emission reduction, electric vehicle, hybrid buses, ISO 14000, photovoltaic array, and so on, and many. So we have 225 terms. We have been talking with the ESCO support team, the team that is responsible for the maintenance, quality assurance, and evolution of the ESCO taxonomy, notably on skills. And the conversation has been, as I said, quite productive, constructive. And we already have done a mapping together of the ETF skills list with the ESCO skills list, and identified many skills from the ETF taxonomy that can be taken into consideration in the ESCO version 1.1 that is going to be developed, as some of them will be, for example, used as non-preferred terms, which are the alternative terms. But there are also some that can be used as preferred terms. Some of them can be, for example, new knowledge for certain to be created, as I'm showing here. So this was just a bit of a curiosity I wanted to share about the conversation benchmarking we are doing with the help of with our friends of the ESCO support team. I guess you have all received information on the dashboards, and you can naturally navigate. And of course, you can use this opportunity to ask any questions or regarding anything that was said, knowing that that this is work in progress, work in development, further development. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Rodion.
Yeah, thank you, Giancarlo. Thank you, Eduarda. Very interesting presentation. I was asked to be a moderator of the Q&A session after your presentation, and we have the several questions in the chat. All of them are related to the points which you mentioned, and I would like to start with the question of Jean-Peter Gante de Otero. Sorry if I do not pronounce your name correctly, but the question is, what are the best uses of the data set and tools in policy making? So basically, I had more or less the same question, and if somebody will not ask, I will. And we face mostly the same problem in at least in Ukraine, that we produce the analysis, but the way of using this analysis is a bit weak, I would say, by the policymakers and educational institutions. So what are your suggestions in this regards, Eduarda?
Okay. Thank you. I think I already said a few words. Let me then maybe refer to a few words about the use. So one of the uses is naturally the fact that an analysis based on online job vacancies can be an eye-opener to new phenomena, emerging skills, new combinations of skills, so different skills mix that are emerging, and you cannot capture those phenomena with the regular labor force survey. For example, you need to go to use alternative sources, and online job vacancy analysis does offer this possibility. So new phenomena, new events occurring in the labor market that can then be further explored, analyzed through a combination of data sources. I think I said from the beginning that the gold of online job vacancy analysis is the possibility they offer to be combined, compared with other data sources, and also to be let's say, combined with data sources, online job vacancy or big data sources from different organizations. So that's one area of let's say orientation, perspectives, new perspectives for policymakers. So if policymakers are to not only follow but also lead developments, this can be a good source. I have also, of course, I gave a couple, I think, of examples of analytical frameworks and different angles of analysis that can be undertaken on the basis of this data using data analytics, AI-aided methods, and always using international classification so that there is comparability. It is a matter of information. It's a matter of trust also. It's a matter of partnership. So there is no, I think, labor market intelligence that can be based on only one source of data or only one institution. It has to be networked. It has to be based on partnerships. It is the public employment services. It is the statistical office. It is different research organizations. It is employers organizations and trade unions and sectoral organizations together, putting data together with a common goal. That's the only way to produce then insights for policy at different levels. It's not only the ministries. It can also be policy at sectoral level. It can be policy at level of higher education or public employment services or active labor market policies. So that's another let's say area or way of using the data. In any case, LMI data or policy use of LMI data needs to be always based on networked and shared insights. Finally, let me say about Ukraine. As far as I know, there is good use of the online job vacancy analysis Ukraine by a number of organizations. So there have been reports produced in 2021, even 2022, that then also looked into the specific case of the region Odessa, using the online job vacancy data of the ETF project. And those analyses have been largely discussed with stakeholders at regional level, with some policy recommendations as result. These reports are published in peer-reviewed journals. So this is just to say that depends on how the country really wants to explore this additional source. We hope also that in the case of Egypt, we will go ahead with the partnership with the Ministry of Planning and Economy and Ministry of Education, and that this online job vacancy data can be, for example, added to the online platform, which already includes the Occupational Outlook Egypt, very recently inaugurated during the Forum on the Future of Work. There are other questions. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Eduarda, for the very detailed and comprehensive from my point of view. I hope that Jean-Peter received also the answer to his question. Well, I see that we have basically only 3 minutes in this Q&A session. So, Francesca, please tell me, may I proceed with the second one? Or
yes,
we just
please.
leave it?
Okay. I think it's really an excellent opportunity to capture the knowledge, of Eduarda. So I would dedicate a few more minutes if Eduarda agrees to answer some questions from the members.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eduarda. Of course, I can't select the most interesting from my side, but so I will proceed in the order of the coming questions. So the next question is about the methodology of building the ETF green skills. You paid a lot of attention and gave a lot of information how to do it, but could you maybe grasp the approach that ETF uses to build this excellent taxonomy which you showed?
Thanks a lot for
this is the question from Joanna Napierova.
Thanks a lot. I think the best would be to share the concept note, which explains how this was done. We also have a presentation published online. It was because this was discussed during one of our 6 webinars of the program of 2022, Capacity Development Program 2022. So there is a specific presentation on this. So basically the data, the terms that you see as green, identified as green terms, they have been identified in a data-driven approach. So bottom up, meaning from the enormous volume of online job vacancies, not only the ETF own databases, but also a wider international amount of data and databases. And so this list of terms are those terms that appear and are extracted following, of course, a certain technique of extraction and comparison from the databases of online job vacancies. And then we have clustered them according to those 7 clusters of sustainable clusters that are inspired by the European Green Deal. You have seen the clusters, yes, from green, from sustainable tourism to sustainable energy, construction, etc. And you saw, for example, strong emphasis on sustainable energy in several of these countries. I want to say that the analysis I showed, the graphs that I showed you for the case of Egypt are new. So we have just produced them this year in March, and we are still working on that, and there will be a report. So we are also producing an analytical report based on these findings, also naturally also challenges and limitations. For the initial countries, so which were then Ukraine, Georgia, Tunisia, the three first countries of our system, we have also done what we call green dashboards, and you can visit them. They are, of course, available online. And we have somehow different emphasis. For example, we were not exploring things such as the skills profiles of occupations to see the exact place of green. We were not exploiting yet or identifying the top green skills, which as we have now for the case of Egypt. It was a different presentation, let's say, of the insights. But we are going to go back to those and expand it to the other countries as well. And this year we will have a new country. It will be either Algeria or Morocco. And so for Najib Hamouti, it could be interesting.
Thank you, Eduarda. Thank you, Eduarda. Spreading the methodology would be, of course, the best option, and we all, I think, eager to look at it. Francesca, may I proceed to another one, because we have a bit around of time. Okay. So the question about the BSS. So the question from Ms. Hasmik Guhasyan, and the question is about that. Not to read it all because it's quite long. The essence is that Ms. Guhasyan says that the analysis contains some biases because of the some attitudes of the big companies turning the internal job announcements for the well-paid works, and the maybe a bit lack of possibilities for SMEs to use the online job vacancies due to this due to its costs. So how do you handle with biases in your analysis? Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a question that many people tend to mention in discussions. And one thing that I always try to say is that it's not a matter of bias at all. It's a matter of the characteristics of this source. So which are the sectors of the labor market that are using online job vacancy analysis? And we are not saying, never, that the data we are presenting covers the 100% of the market or 100% of all types of employments and companies. When we know the assumptions and we know the coverage, we know that this is a characteristic of this source and we deal with it. So that's why we also talk about combination with other sources. And so it's not bias. I don't consider it is bias. It is a characteristic of this data source. And more different types of companies, of employers are using the web to announce their employment opportunities more and more. And it's only going to grow because the world is getting digital. So it's not a bias, it's a characteristic. And we know it, and it's an assumption, and we deal with it.
Thank you, Eduarda. One small clarification or small question from my side. In this regards, do you observe for example, the growing of the online job vacancies announcements from in the countries when you, for example, had the pilots, or when you have the long-term history of cooperation, because this is partly characterizes your answer to the question. If the number is growing, so we see that this is the characteristic and not the bias.
Yes, thanks very much. Your question, I think, has two sides. One side is the growth, just the quantitative growth, yes, the change, and another side of it is maybe the inclusion in the database of new web sources, online job vacancy sources that maybe were underrepresented in the beginning of the project, such as, for example, online job vacancy sources in Arabic language, as we are now doing in Egypt. And this, in fact, represents a different market. If we do the analysis of only the online job vacancies from the Arabic language sources, in the case of Egypt, we have a different picture. And these online job vacancies are incredibly enriching now our analysis, because we are getting much more now jobs from occupations requiring lower skills, for example, and different types of businesses, a larger variety of businesses, sectors, etc. So that's one part. But in fact, if we are only talking about the growth, yes, we could even make, we can even provide data showing how every year the number of online job vacancies increases. But as always, there are issues. There are situations where the certain sources, certain online job vacancy companies, web portals, are offline. That's the case, for example, of Державна служба зайнятості in Ukraine. It is often offline. We cannot scrap anything. So the PES in Ukraine not always accessible. And then we try to compensate, to scrap as much as possible. But that's just an example. There are other cases where the company simply blocks. There is no possibility to scrape. Then we have to talk with them and they have to find a solution. But in any case, one important characteristic of the approach is redundancy of data. We always seek to have redundancy. What is this redundancy? It is the repetition, the duplication, and then we deduplicate. So we need to have a scraping of everything, and we will find lots of duplications because employers are publishing the announcements in a variety of sources, and there are different types also of sources, sectoral, there are aggregators, there are generic, regional, etc., different languages, and therefore we try always to build on the redundancy. We can also show you, and I can send some analysis that we have done of the redundancy in a certain country, redundancy of data, and how it relates then to the quality of the data that we then analyze, and how we use the redundancy to solve those problems that we face when, for example, a web portal is blocking access, is blocking the scraping.
Thank you, Eduardo, very much for your very comprehensive, very valuable answers to the questions. And I pass the floor to Francesca.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot, Eduardo. I think now we should give the floor to Alexander Konstantinov for his presentation on his work related to big data. After Alexander's presentation, we will have again some time for exchange and question and answers. Please, Alexander.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Eduardo. I'm Alexander from Skopje. I did something similar that we are doing here, and we are talking in the morning session. It is an analysis of online job vacancies and occupations and skills in demand in North Macedonia. The idea started with the skill of it from CDFOP when I saw this type of information available for the EU countries. And then I thought myself, okay, can I try like doing the same North Macedonia, where I have a limited budget and not a big team of people who can technically collect data and process and visualize. So it started like a small idea and techniques when I applied web scraping. First, I wrote a Python code, which allowed me to extract data from naidirabota.com. It is a nationwide famous website which collects free of charge any job. I mean, any company can post its jobs there, and it is like 15 years old portal. So I used only that portal. The other portals I couldn't use because, as Eduardo previously said, some are blocked, some are like you can see this box appears that show that you are not a robot, you know, where you have to click. In that case, the Python code cannot work. It stops web scraping. And we're talking about unstructured open data, which is just the postings of thousands of job vacancies. And so it started with the web scraping process, and then I managed to web scrap more than 6,000 online job vacancies for the period of August 2018, August 2019. And this was downloaded in Excel, exported in Excel, which comprised more than 800 web pages from Naidirabota. Then I contacted them and said, your servers might be busy because I'm working with this, and it seems like someone is just copying, pasting all the time, 800 web pages in just a few minutes. And this is the advantage of all this work. It doesn't require you any budget or any human, a lot of people who can just copy paste and do this job manually, but with these techniques, you can easily obtain this open data, which is unprotected in this case. But I emailed them and I told them that I'm going to use their data and I will reference that in the future research. It's for research purpose, and I'm not going to copy and paste it on some other website and be their competition and so on and so on. So they said it's fine for us and do it as you wish. The next step is when I checked the website, I checked what is available on the website. The website comprises several fields which are for my interest, like position, qualification, short description of the job, announce date, when it was announced, apply deadline, areas, which is a geolocation, and organization name, who is posting this job. When I downloaded this, and I will show you in the next slide how it looks like this, for example, in Cyrillic, it's like this position, qualification, short descriptions. So all the jobs are here, positions, occupations, qualifications, sometimes are filled, sometimes are empty, and then it's a short description which shows the skills requested. And the areas are Skopje region, the nationwide, another region, Kavadarci, and so on, and then who is posting it. When I downloaded this, I had the issue with the it's called special signs that are often used by the programmers or those who web persons who are engineers who are while posting, they use in the websites special signs, and this create troubles when processing data. So it had to be removed, and I used a software also to remove these regex or special signs from the data, and then to move on into data preparation. So I recently found this very interesting graph on web, which shows the process. Like you have the data collection. It was previously said by Eduardo, but visually it will look like the process. Data collection, you have unstructured like Lego blocks here, and then data preparation, data visualization, which is like number 3, having like everything in order, and then data analysis. You start with analyzing the data and what it can be obtained, and then the last is the data storytelling, like what is used for and how you present to the public. Once downloaded these occupations, I checked them with because we have the National Occupational Classification, which is published by the State Statistical Office here. I compared this in Macedonian, in Cyrillic language, with the ones with the Excel formula, with the ones from the short descriptions and the occupation position. meaning that it was coded with the 3 ISCO codes based on the national classification of occupations. And this allowed me to code them with 3 ISCO codes digits. The codes numbers then were very easily to convert in English, because it can be downloaded the version in English version, and then Macedonian to English, you just compare the columns and translate automatically all these codes in English codes. And this was a very easy step. And then to also to aggregate into 2 ISCO codes, and then to the main groups, which is one ISCO code, like managers, professionals, clerks, sales, and so on. When I collected the data, when I did this aggregation by by main group, I then said, okay, let's compare with the ISCO, the results from the State Statistical Office, which is a job vacancies report that is done quarterly by the State Statistical Office. And this is how it looks for the compared periods, like August 2018, August 2019. And in percentage, it looks like managers were represented by 0.4%, while in my case were 0.2%. Professionals were 7.3%, in my case were mostly, which is expected because most of the job vacancies are for professionals, and the least are for skilled agricultural workers, forestry and fishery workers, and also for elementary occupations, which are underrepresented because many of these are in rural places and people usually don't use online job vacancies. But it's also, I will also reference to Eduarda's words that we are now transiting to more digital economies, to digitalization, where we expect that all these jobs will maybe near future emerge and will be appearing on the platforms as information. Because the positions requested are usually aimed to people who are not adapted. They don't use websites to find job, but they reference to friends, to their social networks in the place where they live. Especially this is in the countries in transition, in developing countries, and that's why I got these underrepresented numbers for some of the main groups. When it comes to professionals, it is quite overrepresented, I will say, compared to the Statistical Office. But the question can be also vice versa. Are there surveys correct? Because there are also based on sample, and that sample also includes companies with more than 9, I think, or 7 employees, meaning that small micro-sized companies are not at all represented in this survey, and agricultural workers are also not represented in the survey methodology. I moved on to the next step, which is I created a dashboard showing me the ISCO main groups, which is on digit level 1. And then I made a timeline showing how the vacancies are, what is the situation with the online job vacancies by month. We know that business cycles usually are in the spring months and then in the autumn months, and during the winter and summers there is less job vacancies, which is also a good indicator, and it correlates with what we know from the business and economics as a practice or as a rule. Then from this graph, I have insights showing me that professionals and service and sales workers are most represented in the graph, and most demanded of the jobs were in these 2 main groups as an occupation. I moved then to the more disaggregated data, which shows from 1 digit and into 2-digit groups, and based on this with the Tableau, which is the link is available here, it can be analyzed by group and by ISCO to 2-digit groups or subgroups, all this information, and what is the situation for the reference period and then even more disaggregated data, which shows up to ISCO 3-digit groups. And the limitation is that because it's open data, it's not shared with me by the sites. It's not structured as we saw from the Lego bricks. It's just a pile of huge data. I couldn't even go in a more granular way, going to ISCO 4, which was also my aim, but it was like overkilling the data set. When you use too much data, you can easily lose the big picture on what is going on. So I stopped with ISCO 3-digit groups, and I got these numbers, like shop salespersons were the most demanded jobs for the service and sales workers group, which is 1/4 of the demanded jobs. And this was the situation in North Macedonia. It's a small number, though, compared to Egypt, where there are millions of jobs. And but okay, it gives insight for the groups, for the subgroups, and so on. Then I moved on into another challenge to analyze what is the skills within the software developer, the occupation software developer. And then based on the field that says the qualifications needed, and based on the word count frequency, I received this text cloud, which shows that the English is the most demanded. It's always in every single job announcement is present, which is normally for this type of work, that the English is the most demanded. Then the technologies used and demanded by the companies, which are JavaScript, SQL, .NET technology, PHP, communication skills, and so on. This is the weight of the word and the English word. It's the English JavaScript, as mentioned from previous word cloud. And it is useful information because this is very useful because it can show by occupation, and it can be also analyzed over the period. For some occupation, it is very well known that, especially in software development and software application developers are always advancing and learning new languages. And if I compare like current period with period from these 3 years, it will be something different. Probably Python will appear among these top searches, and React and other languages that are present and the companies are demanding from the new employees. Hence, this type of work also provides insight information for those who are entering the labor market, so they can orient what courses, what is needed, what can attend, what can learn, and what is demanded. Not just waste time on courses or which are not demanded, or trainings which nobody will demand locally. The next challenge was to use natural language, NLP, natural language processing, and artificial intelligence for analysis, which I used in another project, and it shows me what is the connection, for example, for certain skills that can be maybe multiplied, used in another occupations, or vice versa. Which occupations need some of the words and the weights, how they are connected. And I think we can use maybe in future projects this artificial intelligence tools, which are more and more available and accessible. The project also helped me to monitor during the curfew, during the COVID crisis, what is going on with the online with the job vacancies, because of the labor force survey is done on a terrain, and it's done on a quarterly basis with some days of delay. The information was late, like after 2 months. Actually, the authorities, the policymakers received after 2 months the information what is going on. And in this case, we have near real-time data on the labor market trends. And I tried this and just to check also what the state of emergency influences, the curfews imposed by the government, and then how the full lockdowns affected the demand for jobs, which in this case actually killed the labor market. There were just 5 per day or on average vacancies, meaning that nobody's employing, and the market has stopped already almost. I mean, it was very, very good to know what is going on, because the labor force survey and other techniques used by the administrative sources or the survey data are really their information and their results comes after a certain period of time, and policymakers couldn't understand what is happening in this matter. Then if I move to the next, it's the conclusion. This slide, it's it gives the online job vacancies is something that is really useful and can be done a lot more in this field. As I said from the previous slide, it gives insights for the entrance on the labor market, also for the policymakers. But it has also some limitations, like mentioned before, like government jobs are not presented, agricultural workers are not presented. Then in case of North Macedonia, I couldn't geolocate the postings because of the not proper posting methods. You know, the company accepts that it doesn't have a filter just to show for the poster to say in which town they're looking workers. And because of that, let's say some small not possible, I mean, as a not possible option, I mean, lack of opportunity, they are just writing in their with words what is the area, and this creates problems to geolocate where the jobs are. This could be solved if cooperation is made with the portals who collect and publish job vacancies. Also, it is useful, and in order to not web scrape their sites and to burden their servers, it's that they share this through API, for example, or they share simply their data sets with the institutions or for those who are doing this type of analysis. Better data register system could also increase the effectiveness and comparability of data, meaning that if a system like the public service agency in North Macedonia, it also collects this data, but the data is very well and poorly done on the website and cannot be extracted. So I didn't use that posting. And if they are functional, if the website is structured with the modern technology, or now currently is outdated technology, it will allow me to download this data and analyze the trends. Then if data entry in online job portals follow some basic rules, for example, introducing ISCO occupations or national classification of occupation, meaning that they are like filtering, like pre-entered these entries, so they just choose instead of they just invent the job posting. That will also easy the work. And yeah, for also using ESCO libraries for skills, it's not present in North Macedonia, but it can be also added to, and for comparability purpose, and not niche sectors, which definitely will improve the data quality and also increase the preciseness of the results. Another possible sources which could be used for this type of open data and big data, it's Booking.com, Trivago, and other portals which collect huge millions, let's say, entries, and statistics can be processes then for reservations in certain area, and then, for example, it can be used to predict what are the demand for workers in certain area in future, or if there are some, also this can be used also if there are some construction works in the future where in certain area there will be needed a lot of workers. It can be anticipated through these open sources, whether those be from tenders or big tenders or from commercial websites and portals. And LinkedIn also is a very valuable source of data, which can also be used for many purposes, also including the migration of professionals and skills acquirement during some period, and so on. If I may stop here, Jessica, I hope I didn't cross the time limit, so it's okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexander. Thank you very much. I actually, the chair of this session is Najib. So maybe Najib, if you want just to inform participants about the slight change in the agenda that we had.
Yes, thank you very much, Francesca. Indeed, there is a change of the agenda. We have one speaker, Janssen, who unfortunately was sick and couldn't attend with us. So we are continuing this discussion with Alexander, and I would like to thank Alexander for this, I wanted to say ferocious work, because I have been web scrapping. I'm coming out with the outstanding conclusions. I myself, though I'm moderating this, but I had one question. But there is one question here from Luca Barbieri, and yes, and Terence is going to speak now as well, of course, in the coming few minutes. But we have a question, Alexander, here in the chat. It's from Luca Barbieri. It says, how much did it take you to code the web scraping algorithm and then the relative analysis without a big team or budget? And
yeah,
then, yes, do you want to answer? Because there are two questions. Okay, can you answer this one, and I go to the next one?
Yeah, thank you, Najib. The Python code is also posted in this ETF publication, which was mentioned also in the agenda, and it can be accessed there. The code is a one page. It actually takes a couple of hours to a skilled programmer to make this and to check what is needed from the website. But first of all, the website needs to be to have this good structure, not to be outdated. It has to be functional, responsive, and then the website also should not have also this blockings. You know, some website says if you check 3 pages, then it blocks you. It says verify that you are not a robot, or verify that you are a person. We all face this, and so on. It clicks, it sends. So, or you have to be logged in order to browse these announcements.
Yes, thank you. Second question is from the same person, Luca Barbieri. It says, you showed us a time series, for example, during COVID time. How often did you run the analysis? And is there redundancy even in a single data source? Example, by mistake or because a vacancy is published repeatedly after not being filled within a time limit?
Yes. When it comes to the second question, it's I run too many times, and as I said, I overburden probably their servers, and it looks like some person is browsing on the servers when someone is testing or is web scraping. And better solution will be that data sharing or through API is shared this data. So it's not, for example, Eurostat or other statistical offices use this opportunity. They share this data through API or through export through Excel, only the selected data, and saves their their servers from being web scraped often, and also Wikipedia, many sites. Some sites they do allow web scraping, some are blocking. So also for the time I was like web scraping like maybe weekly, so to say, or bi-weekly, you know, when I ran for a certain period, but the period was narrowed, for example, from 1st of January 2020 to for example, March, and then to April, and so on. So just for 2, 3, 4 months.
Thank you very much, Alexander. A question from me, if you allow me. You said that once you finish the work on search for occupations, you check them against national occupation classification. This is something which I found very interesting. Was there a result or something as an output once you checked this search with the occupational classification of your country?
I compared the data with the national occupational classification. The national occupational classification is a document prepared by the State Statistical Office, and it comprises the up to 4 digits, like the occupational standard, like ISCO, and then the last 2 digits are reserved for the national. So it comes national occupational standard. It is in Excel available, and yeah, it adds more. I mean, it's more granulated data of the occupations, because it goes up to 6 digits. ISCO is the main 4, so.
Yes, so I have also here another question. Are you from Eleonora Bertoni? Are you following any specific EU guidelines on the usage of web scraped data for scientific publication purposes?
Yeah, no, not specific EU guidelines. Yeah, GDPR, I think some rules apply, but I mean, apply in the EU countries, not in North Macedonia, but this is open data, it is open available. So it seems like someone went like announcement by announcement and copy paste in Excel. You know, web scraping is just the automation of that process. It's the same like you go on Wikipedia, you copy and you paste in Word or Excel. But because to avoid all this manual work, you create web scraping code that does this automatically for you. And web scraping is very well, I mean, known, and it's not a new thing. It's also done for many purposes for this. It's like let's say also competitors, like companies who sell online also web scrape the other competitors and compare with their products. You know, it's used in many ways, in many cases. It's not only in OGVs, but it's used also in businesses, in many occasions.
Yes, maybe one last question or from Thea. Have you tried to also analyze supply side data and compare the results?
Yeah, because the OGVs are actually the demand side, and the matchmaking process, I don't know, I cannot like check and compare this matchmaking if those people were employed or if the company, but this is also data that can be, or information that can be also obtained through this process. For example, if the process or if the vacancy is repeatedly like announced many times over some period of time, that means that it's hard to find some. But in this task, I didn't do that.
Yes, Eduarda is also making a comment. She said that ETF has a special training program for those interested in accessing the OJV database for your own understanding. Okay, she's offering help. This is maybe we don't have a question, another question. So there is also Terence Hogger who's going to take the floor now. Maybe you can come again for other questions. Thank you very much, Alexander.
Thank you.
Really appreciate. Terence?
Thank you. I'll just load the screen. Okay, hopefully you can see the slides. As was mentioned earlier, Mr. Janser was going to give a presentation on a Green Skills Index, but he can't join us. So I'm a substitution at a late date, and I will do my best to assuage your disappointment at this late change. But I think we thought it would be a good opportunity to highlight some findings from another study the ETF has been involved in, which has been looking at the future of skills in a range of countries using a slightly different methodology to scraping data from online recruitment websites. There's a lot of experimentation going on at the moment with data science techniques. And clearly, analysis of online job adverts has become the standard. But I think what this study demonstrates is that there are other approaches as well, which are worth considering. I'm going to outline some of the key findings from the study, and then Francesca will indicate some of the key policy implications which flow from this type of analysis. I should state at the outset that I'm not a data scientist. I'm a humble social scientist. So please try and be kind with your questions at the end. I'm not entirely sure I can answer all of your technical questions, but I certainly can pass them on and get an answer to you eventually. I think what is it that we want to know? Well, I think we want an indication of what future skill needs will be. And I think the two excellent presentations we had earlier demonstrated the wealth of data that you can now obtain on specific skill needs from analysis of online job vacancies. And that gives you an indication of likely change over the very short term, but ideally we would like a view over the longer term. And we want to begin to identify in a timely manner skills required in the future and allow time for training providers, policymakers to react to those signals in some way, given that it's often very difficult for policymakers, vocational schools and so forth to react immediately to changes in the nature of skill demand. We also want to do something which can be done relatively quickly. I'm quite old now, and I remember when I first started doing skills anticipation exercises, they took a huge amount of time and also were incredibly expensive, doing surveys, forecasts, and so on and so on. We want something which can be done at modest expense, can be done quickly, and can make the most of the data which are available. And often, depending upon the country you're looking at, sometimes data can be quite scarce. But I think the wonderful thing about big data, about writing these semantic algorithms, is that you can just generate data from sources which were unimaginable even over a short time ago. But anyway, what I'd like to talk about is the study that ETF launched on the future of skills, which has been undertaken by Fondazione Brodolini and Era Quadro in partnership with ETF. And this study has a sectoral focus. And it's been conducted over a range of countries. And here we've undertaken 8 studies, which have been looking at agriculture, energy, automotive construction, and healthcare across a range of countries. And these reports are either currently available from ETF or will be available in the not too distant future. And just to pick up on the point Eduardo was making earlier, big data analysis isn't a substitute, it's a complement to more standard social science techniques. And what we've done with this study is to embed the data science approach within a more conventional approach, which analyzes reports on developments which are happening within the sector, within a particular country, looking at the statistics which are available, which reveal something about employment demand and skills demand over time, and also engaging in focus groups and bilateral discussions with a range of stakeholders who, to some extent, validate the findings which are coming out of the study as a whole, but in particular the big data analysis, which is focused to a large extent upon on technological change. Now, I mentioned that there's a lot of experimentation going on at the moment, and the big data analysis, which I'd like to talk about here, doesn't rely upon online job adverts. What it tries to do is to use data from bibliographical databases, which reveal something about the drivers of change within a sector, and also data on patents about new technologies which are likely to come on stream over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that gives you an indication of the technologies which are likely to emerge, and to which training systems will have to respond in some way. So here are just some on this slide. These are data which emerges from the study in the agri-food sectors, which we've undertaken. The first chart shows you the sort of drivers of change. The second, some of the areas in which there's been quite a lot of activity in the filing of patents in relation to agri-tech. Now, having obtained all of this information, the next task is to say, well, what are the implications of this for skills demand? So the way we've tried to do this is to develop, colleagues at Quadro have developed semantic algorithms which try to identify the skills listed in ESCO and some other skills database, but principally ESCO. Try to develop semantic algorithms which link the technologies, the key technologies, with specific skills which are listed in ESCO, and then from that identify the jobs or occupations. But we're mainly interested in jobs rather than the more aggregated concept of occupation. Begin to identify the jobs which are most likely to be affected within the sector, most likely to be affected by the types of technological change and other forms of change. But I think a particular emphasis on technological change, which is taking root and likely to accelerate over the short to medium term. And from this, you can begin to develop skill profiles within particular jobs. And I think the benefit of this type of approach is that we're beginning to, it gives a huge potential to begin to develop job profiles with a job profile which is likely to become increasingly commonplace over the short to medium term. And the benefit of that is that, as I say, it gives that space for policymakers to react in some way. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a complement, not a substitute to more traditional approaches, and I think that point cannot be made too strongly, because data science techniques can quite easily produce statistical artifacts, and an important part of that stakeholder engagement is to be able to identify those statistical artifacts and remove them from the analysis. So this is the approach we've adopted. And just to go back to this idea of value added, there's a strong focus on the technical skills which will be required. Now, that's not to say that the soft generic skills, cognitive and non-cognitive skills are not important. Clearly, those are vitally important. But I think the point is, we know rather a lot about those, and they tend to be common across occupations to a large extent. Here, the focus, I think, is more, but not to the point of the exclusion of the soft skills, but it's more on beginning to generate a much more holistic profile of the skills which are required in jobs by being able to identify a lot of the skills which are related to the changes which are taking place in technology. Now, my role in this project was, to a large extent, to translate the analyses which were being produced by the computer scientists, the data scientists, into something which is, you could describe as more traditional sort of social science type of research, to begin to interpret what all this means, for the labour market and skills demand, and how we can provide information which is useful to training providers, to policymakers, who can readily interpret that information and begin to make decisions on the basis of that, to actually change the supply of skills within the labour market. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. And at this point, I'll hand over, perhaps it's an opportune moment to hand over to Francesca, who can provide more insight on the policy side. But just before I do that, I would say, this is a new type of approach. It's offering something different, and I think the real value added is the focus on technical skills, but also the emphasis it gives to skills anticipation. Its focus on the near future, rather than just on the current state of things. So at this point, I'll end. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't disappointed your expectations, and I'll hand over to Francesca at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Terence. Thanks a lot. Although your presentation was already very comprehensive on the methodological part, just a few words also, because we are a bit running late with our agenda, but I wanted just to make some consideration in relation to this different approach of using big data to understand the new upcoming skills needs. We have seen excellent examples of analysis of online job vacancy. This other methodology is different because it doesn't look into online job vacancies, as Terence explained, but looks into a semantic analysis of patents and research papers that tell us about what are the new technologies coming up. And this exercise told us, many different things. First of all, that digitalization is not the only factor impacting on skills needs, but there are also many other issues, and greening is one of the main, most prominent elements that drives the change in the countries. And you have seen this graph, which was showed by Terence, with the different words coming out of this research. And if you go through the different country reports, you will be able to see often words coming up such as aridity, water scarcity, energy efficiency, but also change in taste of consumers, greater environmental awareness, and so on, as factors that really drive a different demand for skills. A second fact, which I think was very interesting, it's a bit of a unexpected effect of this research, is the role of innovation in the country. We started from a consideration which was based on an idea that innovation is mostly happening in developed economies, Europe, US, East Asia, and other developing and transition countries are somehow following on the path of innovation. But surprisingly, we saw that that was not supported by evidence. We saw that innovation is already happening in the countries where ETF is working, and countries are already on the path of digital transformation. Often they are creators of innovators, not only recipients. And the number of patents that were filed in the different economic sectors showed that very clearly. Then, not to spend too much time on the specific findings that came up on the different studies, but it was clear, apart from the fact that new jobs are coming up and that new tasks are coming up in all jobs, so jobs are done in a different way, we saw that there is an interesting demand for higher skilled occupation, meaning that highly skilled workers will be more in demand across sectors in the different countries. And we also found that the same is true for the workers with middle skills level, while demand for the lowly skilled workers is about to decline. And this is true because of the also at technical level, workers that used to be employed with elementary type of skills will be more and more required to work with different technologies and across disciplines. This was, for instance, the case, we always make this example of the so-called gray collars in the automotive sector in Turkey, which are the old blue collars workers that now have to work with a higher level of proficiency in the assembly, not anymore in the assembly lines, but rather working with computers. Then we saw different elements like the growing importance of multidisciplinary approaches combining specific sectors such as agricultural science with medicine or computer science. We saw an integration of functions across the value chain with technicians, for instance, working in business development, customer care, sales, or dealing with the suppliers. And we also saw a prominent tendency to demand from the side of company the so-called T-shaped profile of skills, meaning that workers are required to be vertically specialized in a specific technology, but also to be proficient or to have the capacity to apply this technology transversally over different jobs with an horizontal knowledge of different disciplines. So these are some of the findings that we gather. Of course, there is much more, but for the sake of time, I will not go and enter into detail, but just a couple of final considerations from my side that also echo what Terence has just said. I think that the real added value of this methodology was that the big data findings were mostly confirmed by the empirical part of the research. So when we talk to companies and when we talk to policymakers, most of the new technologies or trends that were discovered through the big data were confirmed, somehow also complemented. But it was essential that this discussion with the stakeholders took place because the two really presented a picture which was more complete in a way. Talking to the company and to the policymaker told us about the size of the demand, the relevance of the demand in the different technologies. So this mixed approach was really the winning, let's say, component of the methodology. There has been a lot of interest expressed by international organizations and even by countries in adopting this methodology to really apply to different economic sectors. We tested in different sectors and it is applicable to different sectors, being more traditional or more innovative sector. And I think that the value of this is also that it's quite cost effective and it gives results in a very short period of time. So there is a sort of win-win situation. Of course, there is the possibility to improve the methodology. For instance, using it together with online job vacancy analysis that now was not, combined because of resources constraints. But of course, if you could think of a more composite methodology where on the one side, you analyze these trends coming up from patents, and on the other side, you also analyze demand from online job vacancies, then you would have a picture which is really much more complete. So I stop here, but I would give maybe a couple of minutes for questions before opening the networking part of the webinar, which anyhow, it's about discussing together. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Indeed, we have only one question from the audience so far. It's about technical skills, the dimension of technical skills of the professional profile, how to take into consideration the level of responsibility, which in fact is part of the profile itself. Is it clear for you, Terence? Question is for you. Can you activate the mic, please?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what the question is getting at. If I may have a go at
Livio. If Livio is listening, please can you maybe rephrase the question for Terence, or maybe just Terence try to give.
No, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I wasn't able to express myself properly, clearly. My question is about the level of responsibility. Listening to the presentation is not just the last one, but all the presentations so far are focusing on technical skills, something that someone must master in order to do a certain job. But in my own experience, qualification and technical skills must be related also to the level of responsibility within the organization. I wouldn't make an easy and foolish example, but someone who's dealing with big data, we are doing this right now, maybe the person in charge of the data entry, or rather the person in charge of thinking how to use those data. It's clearly, if we reduce all of this complexity to simple elements of practical skills, we might lose the level of capacity that and the responsibility within the organization where they must work. I hope I was able to express a little better in words.
Yes, I mean it's a complicated issue, to say the least. I mean, you can use the classifications, let's go, and it will give you different levels of jobs, and you can build up profiles. You can begin to identify current and potential future profiles of skill requirements in those jobs. But at the end of the day, an organization, the organizations in which people work, have a degree of strategic choice about how they want to configure skills within jobs, within the workplace. You know, things aren't fixed, and it may be that, you know, given the nature of technological change or other drivers of change which are affecting the organization, may mean that jobs are reconfigured within the organization in a way that this type of data doesn't necessarily reveal that much about. But I think the key thing here is that I think what we're engaged in is just providing the data in a way that is easily interpretable by a wide range of organizations who can then react to it in a timely manner. And it may be, you know, within a particular organization that you reconfigure skills within jobs in a fairly unique way, which is effective for that particular organization. I think the key thing is we're providing that information which allows anticipation of the changes which are likely to take place, which will allow then, you know, a more efficient, optimal solution to be obtained within the workplace.
Eduarda, want to take the floor?
Merci. Yes, thanks for this question, Livio. I just wanted to contribute with a very short note. So in the presentation on the online job vacancy analysis project of VTF, I had showed a graph of occupational profiles. So profiles at very high aggregation level, of course, based on 3 groups of skills. So the digital, soft, which include naturally, which are the transversal, and also then those that are technical, occupational specific skills. So that's something that can be done based on the analysis we do of the online job vacancies. And if you have a moment to look at the dashboards of the ETF project, you will see that actually we have a very clear presentation of skills in 3 groups, country by country, and then of course you can pick just one occupation, software developers, or the entirety of the market is covered by the database. And the 3 groups are knowledge, skills, and transversal skills and competences. And I'm taking here just an example, and I will take 1 minute, Francesca, I promise, and not more than that, just to show one thing. For example, in this case here, I hope you see. So I'm just taking again the case of Egypt, and I know that there are some people from Egypt in the room. So you can see here, that's the occupational dashboard, which contains in one page all the variables as we have them currently. And you can see that, for example, transversal skills and competences ranked according to the frequency in the online job vacancy database Egypt. And on top we have, for example, demonstrating willingness to learn, or working efficiently, collaborating in teams, leading others, etc. So autonomy, responsibility as a concept also comes in this list. If you were mentioning, for example, data scientists. So if we look just at, we take just software developers, then we have already a different characterization in terms of transversal skills and competences. So what I'm just saying is that it's a matter of deciding what skills have to be found, extracted from the data. And that's why it's called let the data speak. And in this case, we, again, let me underscore, are using, that's the ESCO, but for those who are interested in ONET, the same can be found also in these dashboards. And I stop sharing. So transversal skills is very, very fundamental, and responsibility, autonomy, are interconnected concepts, are of course part of this. Thanks.
I think so we have here a remark from Francesca. Do we have time for questions or remarks or anything?
I actually wanted to maybe give the floor to our colleague Roman that can open the networking part. And anyhow, the networking part is about putting issues on the table, discussing about questions that the members may have about the topic. So the conversation can go on anyhow.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to chair this session, which is not very different from the previous one. We're going to continue talking. The only difference is that this is with basically gloves off, and we call it networking. You've been to these meetings before. The idea is that we really chat operationally and rather to at least try to not get too far into conceptual ideas, but really discuss how this can lead to concrete collaborative options, or how we can work together on some of these themes. But before we look at this issue, Alexander, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I just like to maybe it's more a question, like from the countries like in the dashboard from Africa and for specifically for Egypt. I think that the question is that is there like national occupational standards available, or is there ISCO classifications in this occupation, or they're just classified by the type groups, broader groups of skills and other parameters available from the vacancy? maybe.
That's a question to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, we use always the same taxonomies. So for occupations, ISCO, and for skills, ESCO, for sectors of economic activity, NACE, ISCAT for educational level, and then we started also using ONET for skills. So we have two representations of the skills analysis in ONET and in ESCO terminology and concepts. We are not using national taxonomies or classifications, but we also know that in many countries, the national occupational classification is mapped or very closely linked with ISCO. There are some exceptions, of course, but ISCO is in any case the one we use for the occupational analysis. So for the classification of the data extracted through natural language processing from online job vacancies to get to the results in terms of occupations. And of course, in the dashboards, you see the wider or the more aggregated level of occupations, but we have also disaggregated. You also have their occupations more specific, lower digit levels, but we are not using national. Otherwise, it would not be comparable.
Yeah, the national is too granulated, so to say. It goes very in detail, but I just, it's just a question, like if maybe it's not available in some countries, or maybe it's available, this national occupational classification.
It's available in many countries. In some countries, it's outdated. In some countries, the discussion on the classifier of occupations has been going on for years and years, and concrete decisions were not taken. But all countries have an occupational classifier, and many are, as I said, pegged or mapped to ISCO 08.
Yeah, thank you.
And Kenya has things
Also,
very well. If you look at the Kenya dashboard and other sources, it's well organized.
yeah, it needs to be updated, I think, because of the new occupations that emerge, especially now. So it will be difficult to classify and to put them in the right coding and the right. And then comes to the question from the previous question regarding the responsibility, the educational levels needed, or it goes through some short skills, or I mean short training courses, or which can be also online, or because now we are also seeing the evolving of these digital platforms and these micro jobs and so on, and tasks, and people who work on this digital platform, which is also think that it can be also considered in the future.
Sure.
Thank you very much to both of you for this fascinating exchange, and then we've had many very inspiring presentations, and some of the Q&A was just as interesting as the presentations. But I propose that we now take a few minutes to take a step back, if I may, from the world of big data analysis, and go into the core of this network, which is to explore collaboration and see how we can work together for our common goals. And one of the for those who don't know me, I also work at ETF on the other end, if I may say, of the problem, which is looking at concretely what can be done in the field to support country actions. And one of the things that has become increasingly in demand is how to monitor the impact of employability support programs or educational programs, basically to see how we can track progress when it comes to certainly for skilling for the green transition, not only, but we may focus on that dimension today, since we've been talking largely indirectly about the green transition, or at least the twin transition the entire morning. So I'm really curious to hear amongst this very large audience and the network of experts, has anybody been working on the issue of monitoring impacts of employment programs at their country level or regional, or is that something that anybody has had experience with? Okay, so not immediately. Maybe I was not sufficiently clear in my question. So let me rephrase it. The idea is that, you know, I mean, for now, we've been looking at largely what happens at the level of countries. And of course, we saw that this dashboard is really useful because you can break down down to the level of provinces or regions, whatever is relevant for certain countries. But one of the aspects that that is much possibly, I mean, that probably needs a different technique. And that is to look at program level. So looking at how a certain program has benefited the employability of its beneficiaries, whether it's in supporting employability through a job, or whether it's speeding up the school to work transition, all sorts of, I mean, basically the whole array of measures that are possible in these situations. The problem largely for now is a problem of knowing how successful the intervention has been. And this is something that really interests us. And we're very curious to hear if any one of you has got experience or ideas about that, so we can talk a little bit more about it. And
as a matter of fact, we do this every day.
Right, well, great, let's hear from you.
When we spend money in public policy and we have some individual beneficiary, we have to check whether they will find a job or whether they will have success in their studying career, if they undertake the study path toward a job.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's very interesting.
I'm in charge of an institution which is not an academia,
that's okay,
as we would say, but really we are at service or support to the people who actually provide the service in the town area of Milan.
Right, so that it sounds like you do this on a regular basis. We should be talking more.
You can contact me directly, no problem at all.
Great, thank you very much. I also see in the chat box that Thea, I was not involved. I'm reading her message. I was not involved directly, but I'm aware of how it is done in Georgia. Do you want to come in and take a couple of minutes to tell us how it's done?
Hi everybody, thanks again for a very interesting seminar workshop so far. Yes, if it's needed, yeah. So employment services actually have a very detailed methodology how to track the results of the different ALMs they are using. And one of them is actually to get feedback on the official employment statistics after the graduation. I think that they track the participants up within 6 months. So how many of them got employed, and they get feedback from the employers. Similar way is done like on the education part. So education institutions providers are expected to do employer survey on the skills of their graduates. So these are kind of data they collect. And I believe that there could be more efficient ways. So it's quite time consuming, and I have got feedback from the officials involved. It's quite difficult and challenging for them to do tracking in such a way.
Thank you very much, Dea. That's really useful. I see that Francesca has the hand up. You take the floor, please.
Thank you. Well, actually, I start from what Thea has just mentioned now. There's more efficiency in tracking, for instance, the impact of programs and so on. And linking to the topic of the webinar of today, I just wanted to make a reflection on the multiple use that can be done through big data to, as we have seen, track the vacancies online, to track innovation, or to monitor what's going on after the implementation of programs. So it is true that when you interview companies or you do this type of survey, probably it's not the most efficient way. There could be ways to automate this type of analysis and research. And also one of the comments that I had in my mind when Eduarda was presenting this very broad body of evidence coming out from the dashboards is that the big challenge for researchers and for policymakers is to make sense of all that knowledge, to all that amount of information. So the analytical part of the information is probably the one that that is a bit the challenge ahead of us. So to respond to your question, Roman, I think it would be nice also to push a bit the reflection in this network among the members on how technology can be used in different ways, in multiple ways, to support research, not only on the demand and the supply, but on the impact of employment programs, and why not maybe also on the efficiency of the services offered by public employment service, or many other ways. We have launched a call for proposal. We have, among the network members, we have received many applications, and we're very glad and grateful for that. We are now working on a selection of the proposals, but I think that the exploration and the further exploitation of the databases that are generated through big data could be a very interesting future way of using the material that we are collecting. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and you offer a great transition into the other subject which we wanted to quickly touch upon. We have a couple of minutes left. We've all been reading about it. We've all been experiencing it to a degree, and we are certainly at ECF wondering how to approach the issue. And you've guessed it, I'm talking about AI, artificial intelligence. The role of artificial intelligence in supporting the twin transition in and out of the EU is a question we ask ourselves. Some material has already come out as to the implications for employment. Very clearly, AI helps us a lot in improving the scientific research related to observing the climate change as it happens. The term usually used for that is Earth observation, and here undoubtedly AI has many benefits. Now, clearly, we're going to need to look into how that can help us, researchers and practitioners who are passionate about employment and skills. How can it support our work? This is a question that we ask ourselves, and we thought we really want to hear what you all think about this, because clearly this is not going to go away, and we will need to open up a work strand on this issue. So if any one of you has a very or has any idea really as to how AI can support employment and skills research, we would love to hear that today. So please take the floor if you have an idea about this. And I see nobody is raising their hands. Eduarda, you want to say something?
How did you guess, hein? Mamma mia, Romain, tu compreendes tudo. Okay, thanks, Romain. I just wanted a very small, modest thing. I think we have already started, Romain, you have already in-house some work being done using AI, but maybe your question goes a little bit further. and maybe you are talking about more advanced AI. I don't know. So, and
well, at
maybe
this stage, I'm really just opening the conversation. We want to, take the temperature. Is anything happening in the countries where we all work? Is there something that we really should keep our eyes on? We were just looking for feedback about this fascinating subject, which is only going to grow. We all know that, and basically figuring out where should we be prepared to intervene and probably set up some teams already on the subject. Alexander, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, me again. It's in my presentation, first of all, I mentioned that like 3-4 years ago it started like without budget, without planning, because I didn't know what my project will end and how this task will yield to the research field. And that's why I was also assisted by the ETF staff, especially by Umuhan to do this. And now I'm also thinking about doing AI research, which is Infranodus, which I already applied. It's a data visualization tool that uses GPT-3 and classifies big data sets based on textual texts, strings, and connects them and classifies how these are correlating with some certain topic, in this case, occupation. And I mean, I don't know what the exit out of all this will come out. I tried with the beneficiary assessment and NGO sector in North Macedonia. It went well, but I haven't tried in this. And I talked already with the inventor of this tool, and he encourages me to do it, to try, and probably I will try in the next period this type of usage of AI and classification, textual classification with use of GPT-3 and this new modern algorithms that can be applied in the labor field as well.
Thank you. That's very useful, Alexander. Thank you very much. I was not aware of this initiative. We'll need to talk more.
It's just idea. Yeah, it's for now. Like the previous one, it just came out without. I didn't expect that it will come out something. And then I compared, and then a paper went out. So this time, I don't know how to roll out all the process. It's just idea, and then it can be tried. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Eduarda?
Yes, I wanted to suggest also another opportunity of work, I think very pragmatic and immediately useful in this context of where we are, the labor, the world of work, the world of education, training, skills. So putting these two things together, and it is, for example, using the new tools provided by ESCO to link learning outcomes of qualifications with the ESCO taxonomy, so occupations and skills. And this can be extremely useful in the context of labor of skills matching, for example, public employment services and other employment services. This can also be very useful for education and training curriculum developers, qualification developers, and authorities, where and so this facilitates, eases exactly the linkage of existing education and training programs with the labor market, with skills that as they are in the taxonomies. And this is particularly useful when we take into consideration that currently all public employment services in the EU are to use the ESCO taxonomy as the taxonomy for the main activities of job matching. So in a way or the other, either mapping or adopting directly. And many ETF partner countries are, of course, interested in ESCO. We see this from the different requests. So that's I think a very pragmatic way, activity and opportunity, and the tools exist, and we could contribute with the partner countries to improve them. and train more the algorithms, because the more data, the better the algorithms perform. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We've gone over time now, regrettably, so we're going to have to close, and I'm going to hand over to Francesca. But before I do so, I wanted to point out that we are a very vibrant network, and even though this session about networking is closed for now, it doesn't really stop ever. We're still on email and WhatsApp and any other platform that you wish to use. We need to keep talking and identify new areas of exciting research. So we look forward to receiving your ideas and your contributions. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll now hand over to Francesca.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you very much. So first of all, let me thank all of you for being with us for over 2 hours and a half. It's a big investment, but I'm happy to see that most of you remain until the end. It means that the discussion was interesting, and that's the purpose of this event. I want to thank also my colleague Cristiana Burzio for coordinating the organization of this event in an excellent way, and of course ETF colleagues who participated, Eduarda and Roman, for the very interesting presentation and insights, and of course the colleagues from Co-Water and Brodolini. This discussion on the AI brings me again to link this webinar to the live event we will organize in October, which will be, as I mentioned in the beginning, about digital skills related to demand and the supply side, so also digital learning. And of course, we will have the opportunity to discuss about artificial intelligence, augmented reality, ChatGPT, and other very exciting topics which are nowadays on all newspapers and that dramatically change the face of all of our countries. So I conclude here, and this is just a goodbye to the next webinar. But of course, we remain here, and we are very happy to continue the conversation with all of you. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Слава Украине.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Где Лариса? Покажите себя, пожалуйста. Почему я не вижу Ларису? Ага, вот, наконец, Лариса.
У меня плохое качество.
Какое плохое качество? Ничего подобного.
Да.
Слава Украине, Лариса.
Героям слава, Эдуарда.
Всем.
Thank you. Bye.
До свидания. Дорогой Владимир.
Thank you, dear friends. Bye.
Всего хорошего.
Всего доброго всем. Азел. Как дела? Рада вас видеть.
Очень приятно.
Ви знаєте, я в Брюсселе. Давайте, вы тоже, да?
Да, я постоянно здесь.
Да, давайте чай попьем, кофе.
Как долго вы будете в Брюсселе?
У вас тот же имейл остался?
Да.
Ищите меня и
Да. У вас
я здесь почти постоянно.
Супер. Тогда увидимся обязательно.
Давайте. До свидания. Всем.